Alright, so today we're going to be configuring two CME routers and a VoIP phone attached to each one. And even though they will be both on different networks, they'll be able to contact each other. So I'll show you exactly how to do that today. Alright, so let's get started here. So basically, you need a router folder containing the bin file and the tar file. So make sure you have those first. Then we're going to install TFTPD. Make sure you have internet for this, and then we are going to create a directory called the Etsy whatever it's pronounced / TFTP. So yeah, make sure that everything in this file is correctly set up like this. So if there's any typos, it's not going to work properly. So double check. Okay, so we're going to be making a directory called TFTP boot. Then copy the tar file that's located in the router folder to the TFTP boot directory we just made. Okay, and then you see that there. Cool. Now we restart the service and then install Dynamite to Dynagen. And then we create a configuration file, and I called it config.com. Make sure you keep it in your router folder, and then make sure that the directory in that folder is the right one. Okay, so we're going to start Dynamics here. You'll know it's working if it says start on port 2000, and then you'll start the configuration file. Sudo dynagen, that's your config file name, and then we're going to start R1 and then console R1. Okay, so make sure your network is on the NAT network. All of our VMs will be using this one. Alright, so we're going to install the bridge utilities, which we'll be using to bridge our network here. And we're going to be editing the interfaces file here. So kind of pause this video if you want and just copy whatever. Obviously change IPs or the name of your interface accordingly. Alright, and now we are going to restart the network, and we're going to slave our tap1 to our bridge here. So you can see if it doesn't work, just do if config tap1 up, and then you'll see if you do if config, that'll be there. Okay, so now we telnetted into R1, as you can see, and it's pretty much like a regular router. And we're going to set it with the IP address. I'm using 192.168.5.4. And yeah. So you're going to make sure to clear disk 0 because we're going to be flashing our router here. So yeah, make sure that when you are archiving, when you're using the archive command, use the the correct address of your host, or not host, Linux VM. So yeah, you can see here the flashing is done when it says press return to get started, and now we're going to be initializing the HTTP server here with the GUI setup. And yeah, make sure you get your login here. So I got my admin password. Don't hack me, please. Yeah. And then we are going to set up our various stuff. Yeah. And now we're going to do set up our ePhones here. Max 1. This is the source address we'll be using, which is pretty much the address of the router. And we're going to need that for later. Later you'll see that here. Add a message if you want. I just use my name and then R1 because we're going to be using two phones anyway. Yeah, create the CNF files here and then go onto your web browser and type in your router's IP address here. So first of all, go to system parameters and set up your admin login here. Just confirm your password. Once that's been set up, go to the first Windows VM, set up the sound here if it hasn't been done so already. And for the TFTP server, please use the IP address of the router that we're going to be connecting to. So make sure, again, all the VMs have to be on the same NAT network. So go ahead and do that now. Also, for miscase mode, make sure it's set to allow all. Okay, let's go see if this works here. See if it registers. Fingers crossed. No promises. Okay, so there you go. Once you see the message of the router you set up, on the message of the router you set up, you should be fine. So yeah, I refreshed the page because it didn't show up initially, and then you just, the MAC address of the phone should appear there. So once everything looks good, just hit add anything if you want. Yeah, so once you configure the phone, make sure you go to extensions to add an extension. You're gonna need that to be able to call the other phone for later. So in my case, I picked 7844. And I just named the phone R1 phone. Alright, so once that is done, you hit add, and it should save it to the phone. If it doesn't work, you can always turn the phone off, turn it back on. So yeah, it should show up there. We should go, let's go back to our router here, set up ePhone1, and then assign button 2 to 1. And we'll go back to our phone in a bit on our Windows Server VM. As you can see here, it's our extension is set up here. So yeah, that's pretty much done. So now we're moving on to router 2. So we're setting up router 2 here. Make sure you change the console number, and yeah, because we're going to use that to telnet in, so it can't be the same one. Okay, so we're going to start R1 here. If not done so already, and then start R2. Right, so we're going to telnet into 2522, which is R2. Okay, so it's going to basically be the exact same thing we did for R1. So pretty much whatever I said for R1, just follow that. I'm kind of going to speed through this because, yeah, and also for the IP address, make sure it's a different one, not the same one. So I put 55 instead of 54. For that, I put for R1 previously. So yeah, so next we will format to 0 as per usual, and flash the router, and it's gonna take like 5 years, so yeah. Okay, so once that's done, I'm gonna fast forward because nobody wants to sit through that. Alright, so exact same thing. Set up the GUI, set up the HTTP server, get the CNF files, get your login set up here. I just use the exact same thing that I did just for simplicity's sake. And then go to the GUI of your CME router, so 5.5. So you can see I have both tabs open, the first router and the second router. And set up your login again. Okay, let's go to the second VM. So not the first VM before, but we have the second Windows VM. Set up the sound, do what you need to do, set up the route. Once you're down that, go to the phone itself, and then for the TFTP server, make sure it's set up to R2's IP address. And then again, the same process as we did before, adding the phone. So I picked 7944 for the second phone, and then I just did R2 phone. Again, you can just keep it however, you can name it however. Okay, so ePhone1, and then assign buttons to them. And then you can see here, it's working on the second phone, on the second Windows VM. So that's how you know everything's working. Alright, so now we're going to be setting up destination patterns. Sorry, a dial peer. And then yeah, so make sure you set up the destination pattern that matches the other phone. So you could either do the whole number, or you could just do 7 ... signifying a digit. So you make sure you set that up as well. And then for R2, you do the exact same thing. Also, I didn't mention this earlier, but when you're doing the session target, make sure it's the other router's IP address, not the same one you're currently on. So for R2, it'd be R1. As you can see here, I'm gonna get the phones to call each other here. So we'll switch to full screen in a bit, and you guys will be able to see. So any minute now. All right, there we go. So yeah, you'll see 2 phones here. I'm gonna get it to call 7944 from R1 from 7844, and as you can see, they can talk to each other even though they are on different networks. So yeah, I'll show you guys my configuration on the first router. So yeah, do show run, and then you'll see here, that's what it looks like here. That's the IP address on the interface, and then the dial peers here, the phones are here. And yeah, so we'll go to R2's startup config. You sure rum. Okay, yeah, so here we go. Same thing. Interface is set up, IP, HTTP, the GUI is set up, dial peers are there, and the phones are there. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So good luck.